So there's a word that's been flying around recently, and I kind of didn't really know what it meant at first. I recently found out what it meant, and not only what it meant, but what the implications of it are, and that there are entire communities online sort of around this, because of course there's communities around everything online, and that's a beautiful thing in a lot of ways. It can also be a very toxic and bad thing in other ways. The internet, I think, is a reflection of humanity. That's just what it is. And we've got our good sides and we've got our bad sides. This would be the latter, I would argue. Anyway, the word is incel. Some of you may be way ahead of me on this and you know exactly what this is. For those who don't, it means involuntary celibate. These are basically, I don't mean to laugh when I say this, these are basically guys who can't get laid. When they say involuntarily celibate, that means that they would love to be having sex, but those darn women won't be having sex with them. Yeah, this is what I call just being a guy for the most part. And I had this conversation with my wife earlier, and she was like, yeah, that's what being a woman is like too. Everybody has dry spells. Everybody has challenges in the sex and relationship department. Now, as a guy who has had that perspective my whole life, I disagree that it's the same between men and women. I kind of feel like if a woman wanted to get laid, she absolutely could if she wanted to. But of course, women are not always just interested in getting laid. They and this is true for a lot of men too. I'm going to speak in some generalizations here for a second. Women generally want more relationships, more deep understanding, that kind of thing. This is something that my wife agreed with anyway. But the fact that it's not that men are now suddenly not able to get laid. Okay. Dude, I had some bad years, man, in my mid-20s. I think your 20s are like such a rough time because you don't have your shit together yet. You don't have your life together. You're not like steadily employed, or you might be steadily employed, but you're like the bottom rung unless you were like born into something. And you don't really know who you are yet. You're still trying to figure all that out. Look, some people just nail it right off the bat. Some people do. I was not one of those people. I really struggled through my 20s. And, there were a few years there where I couldn't even get a date. And I do think that as a guy, it can be really difficult if you are under or unemployed, not because girls are into money necessarily, but it's like, it's kind of hard to go out when you don't have any money. And it's kind of hard to meet people if you never go out. I used to actually kind of got into it with a friend of mine, a female friend of mine, back in the day. It wasn't an argument. Let's just say it was sort of a heated discussion, but she was talking about how she had been going on all these terrible dates and stuff like that. She was upset about it. And I was like, yeah, but you don't have to pay for those dates. I'm going on terrible dates and I have to pay for them. I remember specifically, the weirdest argument I've ever had in my life was on like a Match.com date that I had with a girl, and she it had just been in the news that they had done a separation of some conjoined twins, and it was like this, they were like joined at the head, so it was like this huge 87-hour operation, and both of their lives are at risk and everything. And I don't know, I just kind of said something like, I don't know why they have to risk the lives of these kids just to separate them. And as far as I know, their health wasn't impacted by being conjoined. They were just different, right? They just wanted to separate them so that they would look and have like a normal life. But I said, I kind of feel like why would they do that if it was going to threaten their lives to do that? Anyway, I just kind of held that viewpoint. And she was like, so are you saying that it's better for them to be freaks their entire lives? And I was like, I would argue that's better than being dead, And, and she this is the weirdest fight I've ever had with anybody in my life. She got really quiet and wouldn't talk to me for like the rest of the evening. And at one point, I never thought I would say this on a date, but at one point I was like, I'm sorry, were you a Siamese twin at some point? Like, how did what I say offend you so much? Anyway, my whole point is, and I had to pay for her food. So my whole point is, look, there have always been guys having trouble getting laid. There would not be music if it wasn't for that. There would not be art if it wasn't for that. There would not be any movies if it wasn't for that. The difference now is that you have these guys calling themselves incels, which is basically them. I mean, it's right there stated in the name, involuntarily celibate. It's an external focus. It is a focus on the women, that the reason they're not getting laid is because the women have too high standards, or are not giving them what they feel they deserve. There's a bit of an entitlement there. But it's also just a branding thing. When you label yourself as an incel, as someone who can't get laid, as somebody who is unfairly treated by the opposite sex and whatnot, when you label yourself with something, you start to embrace that, and you start to internalize it. And this is where there's a toxic side of this, where I was reading an article where they were talking about how in some of these forums and stuff, they were literally sort of emulating or hero worshiping mass shooters who went on rampages because they were pissed off at women and stuff like that. That's horrible on every level, and nobody should go down that path. But on the other side of it, honestly, it kind of breaks my heart, because I've been there. I've been so lonely. I could just it's beyond depressing. It makes you discount yourself. It makes you lower your own personal value. You start to think negatively about yourself. And in looking at some of the comments that were in this article that was talking about this, just the level of self-hate that a lot of these guys were showing, it really breaks my heart. Because the worst thing that you can do when you're in that moment, and of course you don't understand this at the time, this is old man Joe talking now, the worst thing you can do is focus on that. The best thing you can do is turn inward and just say, look, all right, so let's just say that the girl thing isn't going to be a problem for a while. Like, that's not going to be something I'm going to have to worry about, is the girl thing. So let me just focus on me. How about I see what I can do to increase my happiness, to find some joy in life, to find something that gives me a charge? What can I do to become more healthy? Maybe get in better shape. What can I do to advance myself professionally, or find some art or some hobby or something that could propel me forward in my life in some way? What if I focus on that? Because the thing that always happens, and this is sort of cliche, is that as soon as you stop looking for it, it finds you. And the reason why it, being attention from the opposite sex, from everybody for that matter, is that once you really are in your own skin and comfortable with that, and you know who you are, and you know what you care about, and you work toward that, that's attractive. Not just to the opposite sex, to everybody. When you see somebody that like walks in a room and they're just like, yeah, I know what I'm all about. Dude, that's hot. If I see a dude walk in that has that sort of aura around him, I'm like, all right. I mean, I'm not saying I want to nail the guy or anything. I'm just saying, like, you're attracted to that. And so, and that's what bothers me about these forums that these guys get sucked into, and it becomes all toxic and everything, is because they're constantly outwardly focused when you need to be inwardly focused. There's a couple of there's a podcast I'll listen to. It's called The Art of Charm. And there's a YouTube channel called Charisma on Command. There's many others that I could point out. I've always been interested in like self-improvement, and especially, psychology and getting your own head together and stuff like that. And what I always find, I say always, I've found this many times, is that a lot of these kind of self-help or self-improvement, I'm using this a lot, gurus, a lot of these kind of started off as like pickup artist content. How to pick up girls, how to approach women, how to, show up and walk into a room and get everybody's attention and that kind of thing, how to be better socially and that kind of stuff. Like it all kind of starts there. A lot of these things did, like The Art of Charm did, but it quickly expanded out. Like The Art of Charm now is not just about that at all. It's about professional growth. It's about relationship growth. It's about, being a better person. So the reason it cracks me up is because basically these guys start these things about how to pick up women, and what they wind up realizing is, turns out if you're a better person, more people are attracted to you. You know, if you have your shit together, people are attracted to you. If you are moving forward on something and you're passionate about something, that's attractive. So, to anybody out there that identifies as an incel, that might be watching this, I just want you to know on one level, I totally feel for you, man. I know how horrible that feels. And I know how when you feel rejected and put down all the time, how that kind of feeds on itself and it's sort of like this downward spiral, and it's really hard to pull yourself out of that. But this is one of those things that I wish I could go back and tell myself, because I was totally bitter back then. I've run across from time to time things that I wrote back then. I'm just like, oh my God, did I write that? Did I really think that way? And I did. And it's easy to think that way when you're in that place. But if I could go back and talk to myself again, I would just be like, look, forget about the girls. Just don't think about it. Just focus on yourself. Just focus on things that you care about and that you love, and just try to find other people that are into that kind of thing and focus on that. And it's all going to work out. And so that would be my message to anybody out there that might be in that situation. But don't go down that toxic route, and don't start like hating on women. Look, women have their own bullshit. They're human beings, and they're full of shit just like everybody else is. I will say that today. But you can't do anything about that. All you can do is focus on your own bullshit and get your head together and work on it. The thing is, we live in a time now where like there's endless amounts of content and support out there if you really want to make good change in your life. So focus on that. That's what I wish I could have told myself. So that's what I'm saying to anybody out there who might hear this. So anyway, that's what I had to say. Be good to each other. Be good to yourself. I'll catch you later.